guys. Hey guys. Hey.
This is not your average podcast, trust me. This is IPSERIES, where you learn to protect and safeguard all your intellectual property so you can make a career of what you love. Join me, Rita Chinda, as we discuss all things intellectual property from the world of fashion, film, media, entertainment, dispute resolution, and even technology. Welcome.
Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to the IPSERIES webinar, which is basically targeted and geared to the creative sector. And today we'll be having discussions about collective management organization from the global perspective and from the Nigerian perspective. We'll be having our speakers. We already have our speakers here. So by way of introduction, my name is Royalties Chinda, and I'm the founder of the IPSERIES brand. And then have with me Mr. Tando. Mr. Tando, just give us a short introduction about you, and then we'll just get right into the questions.
So my name is Tando Nyameni. I am the managing director of the KwaZulu-Natal United Music Industry Association, otherwise known as KUMISA, in the city of Durban, South Africa. Also serving as a board member of the Mosquito Music Conference and a CMO known as CAPASO, which is the Composers, Authors, and Publishers Association. I serve in that board in quite a few capacities as well. And I'm also the chairperson of the Music Creators South Africa, which is an alliance for music composers within the Southern African region, where we seek to create an organized environment for music composers, because publishers are normally more organized than we are. And then lastly, I also serve as an executive committee member of the International Council of Music Creators, who uses a French acronym called CM, an organization that represents music creators across the globe, working hand in hand with CSAC, and it's also based in France. So in a nutshell, that is who I am. And I think most importantly, I'm a singer, songwriter. So that's where it all starts with me. And I always end off with that one.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Mr. Tanda. I also like the fact that you highlighted that you work with CSAC. So, Mr. Samuel, over to you.
Thank you. Good afternoon, everybody. And thanks a lot, Rita, for inviting me to the IPSERIES. I'm Samuel Sangwa, based in Rwanda, and I'm the Africa Regional Director of the International Confederation of Societies of Author and Composer, named after its French acronym CSAC. So CSAC is the umbrella organization bringing copyright societies from the world under one roof, and I'm in charge of the African region.
Thank you so much, Mr. Samuel. I think you shortened your bio, but thank you all the same for agreeing to speak with us today. I'm just going to get right into the question for today, and I would like to start with you, Mr. Samuel, if that's fine by you. So my first question to you would be, how do you think that CMOs in Africa are going to embrace technology in terms of royalty tracking, monitoring of compliance over the use of copyrighted work, and also based on your experience and the work you do at CSAC, what are the conversations that you guys are thinking that the African CMOs can actually adopt going forward?
So I will start, before I go to your question, I'll start first of all by a small, let me call it, introduction about copyright, which is this bundle of rights a creator has over the work. In this case, let's say musical work. And those bundle of rights are what we call economic rights. It means the creator is entitled to receive a remuneration anytime the work is used and the rights are activated. Wait, I'm trying to make it simple. So basically, the creator is entitled to get those remuneration, but it's practically impossible for him to go and collect his money from all the places where his work, his, her work are being exploited, are being used. If It's a music creator. It can't be going in all hotels, radio, TV, or any other place where his work played. That's the starting point now of collective management, basically of corporate society, where creators come together, entrust an entity to go and collect royalties on their behalf, basically. And that's what we have, a collective management organization. Now, from there, the works, music works, for instance, are used in different areas and in different formats. This can be live bands. This can be through broadcaster, a TV or radio, or this can be through a digital. So the corporate society need to have the human resources and the technology to go and monitor the use of the music in those different places, basically. And now coming back to your question, this is where now African CMOs work either individually to have the right infrastructure. What do we call the infrastructure for a CMO? Is the ability to identify the work. When you go to a CMO, the CMO should be in a position to identify your musical composition, name, author, composer, and the like. And also from there, when the work is used somewhere, report that information, either identifying it through some specific technology which will enable the CMO to identify the work. So basically, I'm using the word identifier. So the CMO needs to be in capacity to allocate music work identifier, which will enable, when the work are being used, to identify these at some point. So I'll stop there. I don't want to be long. The CMO need to have the infrastructure, the human resources to monitor the use of the work, to document the work, and to make a follow-up all of that. So as far as Africa is concerned, and I'm in charge of the African region, where we have 30 copyright societies, depending on the level of development of the societies. Some societies are doing quite great. They have the infrastructure, they have the human resources. Some are not doing also great in this because they may be lacking either the human resources, the infrastructure, or the enabling ICT environment. Let me stop there. I don't want to make it very long. And then probably I will come later with some specific example as far as Africa is concerned.
Thank you so much, Mr. Sammy. It's also interesting to know that we have 30 CMOs and just 10 are effectively working, which tells us that we have a lot of work to do regarding how the CMOs can actually work with the copyright holders and other relevant stakeholders. Now, over to you, Mr. Tando. Yeah. So, what would you say? How can we actually handle transparency, leadership, governance, and reporting? And there's lessons that African CMOs can actually take home from other international bodies who have been doing it. I mean, based on the statistics that Mr. Samuel just shared, we still have a lot of work to do. So, what are those things that we need to do in order to improve these other areas?
Okay. Look, I think it's a fair question. It's a very important question. So basically, I think from a transparency, corporate governance element, ensuring that everything works out the way that it should. I think every organization is as good and strong as its policies. I think I want to start there. What's the policy? And I think I'm now wearing my music creator South Africa hat, where we speak on,
Okay.
from the level of music creators and composers. I feel that transparency also speaks to there's a lot of facets involved in it. Firstly, let's start with corporate governance. Many CMOs try to be accountable to their members who are publishers and who are also composers by inviting them and involving them as board members in those particular societies. Now, I want to put it to you that as a songwriter myself, being eligible for board there's a very strong chance that I have no experience serving in a board. And that lack of experience tends to hinder the operations of a CMO because I feel that people need to be versed in things that have to do with corporate governance and how an organization runs. Because if corporate governance from a board level, we don't find a center, we don't align, and we don't work for the benefit or the betterment of the industry from both a publisher and composer perspective, where all works are actually identified, they are tracked, identified, the composers are notifying their works, the composers are actually members of these societies, notifying them, and actually ultimately being remunerated by them. You find that the system becomes quite difficult. And if the board, the governance structure is not holding center, it also affects operational efficiency for those who are running the operations of an organization. So it's very important to also add an amount of training and development to composers who can become eligible to serve on these boards, because the board sort of empowers operations to be operational. So that's one. Two, also having internal systems, being able to communicate to your members, because for me, that's the importance of this whole thing, where CMOs are communicating to their members, and they communicate by form of your newsletters, whatever it may be, or even holding those annual general meetings, ensuring that they actually uphold the corporate governance principles that actually see these CMOs holding AGMs where they account to their members, where they share how much was collected for distribution, how much was actually distributed. If money was not distributed, why was it not distributed? How much is sitting under undoc? What undocumented works do we have? Why are they sitting there? How can we identify owners of these works? Get them to sign up if they are not members. Get them to notify correctly, like how Samuel said, where they notify the correct metadata, because some people don't even understand the importance of metadata and that they are assigned an IPI and all those things. It's about educating stakeholders, starting with the music creators, starting with the music users as well, so that they pay the licenses that they need to pay. So there's a lot of education that needs to take place for the system to run properly and also to remain transparent, because that's where now we get to report to members that this is what we've collected, this is how much we're paying, this is where we are struggling. And I can tell you right now, Rita, we are many CMOs, and this is not an African situation, it's a global thing. Many CMOs are still struggling when it comes to notifications by members. And I feel like more education, more outreaches need to take place where we encourage composers, independent composers, to actually become members and to actually notify their works. Because ultimately, we are keeping monies that belong to people, but you find that those people either are ignorant to what a CMO does. So I feel like we need to do it, because the publishers are doing it the right way. They are more versed in it, they're more experienced, they're more organized, but the composers, we're lacking there. So there's still a lot that needs to happen. And of course, there's no transparency, there's no growth, there's nothing if the African CMOs don't work in sync with each other. The bigger CMO carries the smaller CMO to empower it, because ultimately they need each other. So these bilateral agreements or reciprocal agreements are also quite central to this. And there needs to be a reporting system, an accountability system between these CMOs, so that we are certain how much has gone into that CMO that the bilateral agreement actually speaks to. So transparency is something that needs to happen from different vantage points. It cannot just be from one point. It needs to be from the CMO to the members, the CMO to CSAC, the CMO to other societies as well within the African continent, and obviously other CMOs across the globe as well, because we are literally a global village and we need to work hand in hand. We do have the infrastructure, we do have the willpower, but we need to educate different stakeholders that will enable us to actually be more efficient in what we do. I'm not sure if I've covered a little bit on the question itself, but I'm very happy to rephrase anything that you might want me to.
You have, and you also touched on something I want you to talk about next, which is on cross-border collaboration. I know you mentioned about the big CMOs hiring the smaller CMOs. So my question to you will now be that in view of this cross-border collaborations or any collaborative opportunities out there that may exist for Africa, do you think like having a unified CMO for Africa, just like we have the after IP agreement, do you think we need something like that? Or is it just too fragmented for us to structure at the end of the day?
Look, it's a beautiful idea. It's a great idea to have a unified global or Africa or continental CMO, but I think the devil is in the detail of how that could look like when it's being implemented, because you have to now put in consideration the different dynamics each territory within Africa actually has, from a political standpoint to an economic standpoint, a technological standpoint, um, and just socio-economic standpoint. So if you look at it, you'll find that some CMOs, like for instance, I stand corrected, and Samuel can actually correct me here, but some CMOs are actually government run. So as opposed to other CMOs that are independent, but also sort of adhere to the copyright laws of that particular territory. So you'll find that the way that CMOs are constituted sometimes makes it difficult for CMOs to effectively and efficiently transact and interact with each other. So it would be a nice thing to do, but it's very difficult because there are many ways, many things that actually affect the running of CMOs that are tied to the laws of the land where those CMOs are actually existing. So for now, I think the idea of having these multilateral and bilateral agreements where CMOs are sort of supporting each other. I can tell you now, for instance, Capasso, where I serve as a board member, I won't speak for other CMOs, they even go as far as to even train smaller CMOs in spaces where they feel like they've already advanced, perhaps in terms of technology, the technologies that are there, systems that are much more better or more efficient in terms of collecting royalties and administrating those royalties and distributing them. So I've seen some CMOs that are big actually partnering with other CMOs and also capacitating them so that they still maintain their independence, but at the same time still working in an environment that is very cohesive and supportive of each other. Because ultimately, they win, we win, because music is if music is distributed correctly, marketed correctly, then it's going to play in different territories where all these CMOs have jurisdiction to actually collect royalties and support each other in the collection of those royalties and ultimately the distribution thereof as well.
Thank you so much, Mr. Tando. So it would appear that the other two speakers are still having difficulty in joining us. We've tried severally on the back end, but they still can't join us. So I'm just going to continue with both you and Mr. Tando, if that's fine by you. Um, Mr. Samuel, are you there?
Yes.
Great. So, what would you consider to be like the necessary licenses that every creative or user of copyrighted work must be aware of, and how can they comply with the usage or the terms of use for those licenses that they have obtained at the end of the day? Is it the bulk of the work? Is it just on the CMO, or does the Copyright Office have a role to play? Or let's say from CISAC's point of view now, what role do you guys really have in terms of ensuring that creators are aware of these forms of licenses and how everyone can comply with the relevant copyright law as it applies to their jurisdiction?
So Mr. Tado shared about governance and transparency. It's very, very important. And as I explained, this is a number of creators coming together and entrusting a CMO, a collective management organization. So collectively, we entrust an entity to collect on our behalf. And that's where accountability starts. So the CMO need to be accountable to the creators. Through which format the creators will establish themselves through a general assembly. And the general assembly will have a board of directors. And the board of directors will appoint a manager or management. So there is mutual accountability along this scheme. It's very, very important. You need to have your creators in the general assembly. You need to have a board. You need to have a manager. How do you become a member of the general assembly? This needs to be defined. How are you elected into the board? This needs to be defined. How many times do we hold election of the board members? This needs to be defined for accountability. How do you organize the reporting? All of this need to be worked about. Very, very important. So we in CISAC, we really insist on that. We actually have corporate governance because CMO is like any other company or association where you have rules. It's like a club. You join a club, you need to play along the lines or the requirement of that club. So we strongly insist on governance, as I say. So those practices, processes which guarantee efficient reporting, efficient distribution to members. Very, very, very key and transparent. So this will guarantee what we call corporate reputation. And I really want to insist on that point. Like any other society or company, when the reputation is damaged, there's no more trust. If you're engaging with an insurance company, if you're engaging with a bank, and then they tell you that there is mismanagement, you will no more be going there. So it's the same with CMO. Corporate reputation is very, very key. This is what builds the trust between the society and the creators, the members, the society with the policymakers, and the society with the users. Coming back now to your question about those people who are going to use the work and who need to pay. I want to pay my money, but knowing that this money is going to the creator. So we have this set of rules which we call professional rules, which any CMO in CISAC need to abide to. Secondly, we have what we call binding resolution. Binding resolution is how do we ensure from a technological perspective there is transparency and accountability. We need, first of all, to identify creators, to provide them with an IPI. IPI is informed parties involved. If 3-4 people come with a musical work, we need to identify each of them individually. So we'll allocate to each of them this identifier called IPI. And then we have ISWC, International Standard for Musical Work Code. So this identifier goes with each respective musical work. So when we now monitor, this will enable to know which work was used and who are the creator behind. And all of this become transparent. We need to have that. So this is something we really insist on as CISAC. Now, what we need now to bring into the table is music, if I take that very example, is a substantial component of those running businesses such as broadcasting, hotel, restaurant, entertainment, conference, sport, and the like. It's part of the business model. You can't of their business. It's very important for you to understand why they need to comply. Are you with me? So I was saying it's very important to understand that music is part of the business model of the users. There's no radio, there's no restaurant without music. It's not like it's put there randomly. Music enhances the experience of food when you go in a restaurant. It enhances your hotel experience when you are staying in a hotel. It enhances your experience of watching a football match in a pub when there is music. So it's part of the business model. It helps to attract audience, to attract clients, to generate income. So based on that, those who are using music, the same way they invest into electricity, they invest in buying food, they invest in a number of things, they need to pay. So that's the beginning of why copyright compliance is important. Not because of the law, yes, because of the law, but because you are integrating the property of somebody else into your business and you are making income, I would say, in the case we are talking about commercial entity. So that's why in part of our outreaching, our education, is to inform those users like, this is a win-win situation. You need music, good music, to attract and retain clients. You need your event to look good. You need your wedding to be memorable. So this music which belongs to me has an economic value. And that economic value will be translated into enhancement of your businesses, your event, your conference, and whatever. And that comes with monetary consideration. And that's why you need to pay. So that's the whole essence of licensing. You need to get our authorization to use our music into your function, event, whatever, and the understanding that if you want us to supply you with that, let me call it raw material music, then we need to be incentivized. We need to be remunerated. I would stop there talking about the licensing philosophy or background, I would say.
Okay, thank you so much, Mr. Samuel. I see that Mr. Mayowa Ayilaran from the Music Copyright Society of Nigeria has just joined us. Mr. Mayowa, you're welcome. Mr. Mayowa.
Yes, thank you so much.
Yes,
Good
sir.
afternoon
You're
there.
welcome, sir.
Yes, good afternoon there. Good to see you all.
Thank you so much. Mr. Mayowa is joining us from Canada, and the time zone is far apart from Nigeria and also South Africa. But Mr. Summer had hinted about licenses. I wanted you to shed more light on what MCSN does in Nigeria, especially with regards to the recent advisory that came from NCC. There were a lot of conversation and buzz about why DJs and not the venues or event places should be obtaining licenses to perform. So can you just give us insight on how creatives should obtain license from your organization and what they can do going forward, sir?
Thank you so much. First, I want to thank you for inviting me to speak on this program. And on the issue of licensing, at least I caught Samuel laying the background for why this is necessary. And that is the philosophy behind the use of music in any form of business, be it in hotel, in broadcast, in any kind of engagement with the public where music is engaged, then the need for licensing kicks in. So regarding this recent advisory issued by the NCC, it is a clear thing. The DJ use music to enhance their business. When DJ goes out to play for clients, for their customers to entertain them, they use music. And these music were composed or created by different individuals all around the world. And the DJ, they are making a lot of money playing this music, and they needed to remunerate the creators, that is the owners of the music. So there shouldn't be any brouhaha regarding this with the DJ. What is lacking, the gap there that I can really see is lack of information or adequate education. Because many of these people think that music is free as the air, but they have forgotten that there are some intellectual labor put into creating that music that ought to be remunerated. So there is a template for licensing the DJs because we have a set of tariffs for different kind of users, a different set of tariff for people in the hotel, lounge, and background music sector, a different set of tariff for broadcasters, vis-a-vis different set of tariff for DJs. So it's for them to, come to terms with that tariff. And if they feel uncomfortable with the value of money derived from such tariff, they are free to negotiate. For example, we have gotten into negotiation and even agreement with their association. That's a DJ Association of Disc Jockeys Association of Nigeria, popularly known as the JAN. So actually, we recently trained the DJAN. We educate them. They are executives from all over the country. We hosted them in Lagos and we trained them on the necessary provisions of the Copyright Act. And they felt quite happy. So it is for the DJ executives now to go to their various states or various localities and cells to explain in details what their obligations are under the Copyright Act. So we have done that in conjunction with the Nigerian Copyright Commission. So if there is any DJ out there complaining about being asked to remunerate those who created the music they use in their business, then the DJ Association, that is DJAN, should be responsible for adequately informing their members. So I don't see any problem there. So generally in the country, people feel that the money is just there for the CMO to pick, but it is not usually so. To get money out of somebody anywhere in the world is always difficult, not to talk of developing nations like Nigeria and in Africa generally. To get money out of anybody is difficult, even for what you are consuming. Take, for example, electricity in Nigeria. Not many people will want to pay for electricity. And yet, people want electricity to be supplied 24 hours. How many of us are ready to pay for 24 hours electricity supply? But what the electricity company can do, they have the power to switch off their lights. That means you are now forced to pay. But the musicians, the creators, they do not have the power to switch off the music. The only way they can switch off your music is by driving you before a court of law and maybe get a judgment. Even to enforce the judgment, it takes ages. So all these challenges are the challenges facing licensing in most countries. But I believe that with the progress we are making, very soon, not very long, very soon, many people will see the need to obtain license for the music they use in their businesses. So we have the challenge of people understanding why they should pay. We have the challenge of even quick adjudication of cases of infringements. We have different challenges of, the users themselves raising series of questions like, oh, I don't use Nigerian music, I don't play Nigerian music. And when you break it down to them in law, they now said, well, we will contact our lawyer. Then the lawyers will start to raise different kinds of issues that will take time to resolve. But thank God for the new Copyright Act and the body language of the NCC regarding enforcement. We are seeing some signs of seriousness and some level of compliances now. So with this, I believe the issue of licensing is a kind of work in progress, and the CMOs will be on top of it.
Thank you so much. Okay. Mr. Tando, I see that your hands, the
Yes.
emoji hand is up. Do you want to say something?
Yes, no, very, very quickly. I think just on a music user, and I think as I was listening to Mr. Ailaran, I sort of was triggered a bit when we talk from a user license perspective, and I think I've learned a little bit about the Nigerian music market in that sense. But there's so many things that the different territories within the continent, in fact, from a global perspective, that we actually find common where music users tends to be a challenge, the music user element. And I'll just maybe pick on two, starting with the last one that Mr. Ailaran actually touched on, which is the legal enforcement gaps. Every country obviously has a copyright law that is quite tailored to the dynamics of that particular territory. But we often find, irrespective of those dynamics, that while these laws exist, then the enforcement is usually very weak. And ultimately, many users actually get away without paying or even wanting to negotiate licenses. And CMOs often lack sometimes in certain parts of Africa, they lack the resources to litigate as well because all of this is costly. So we really, it goes back to what I started with, that we need to educate numerous stakeholders. So it's not just the music users that we are also educating, but we also need to educate our lawmakers to understand the existing laws and how to make those laws enforceable. Because ultimately, people must know that if I use music without paying a license, it's actually I'm infringing on someone's right, and ultimately that is a crime in a sense. I don't want to, it's illegal to do so. So for me, that's one of the things that we need to do, but it also includes educating not just the music users, because obviously when we talk education, we always talk about educating music creators. So we've also got to educate the music users, but we also have to educate our lawmakers so that they understand how our industry works. Because I think because of the informal nature of our industry, it's sometimes they don't really take it seriously and consider it as a proper GDP contributor of an economy. They don't look at it from an economic perspective. They often look at it from a cultural perspective, what it does from cultural expressions, things like that. But from an economic standpoint, it's up to us to educate them. And I think the second part that also I've identified as one of the issues that Music Creator South Africa is trying to address in assisting our different CMOs, because obviously some of our CMOs are segmented differently. Some will administer all the different rights, be it performing public performance rights, mechanical rights, digital rights, neighboring rights, or what we call needle time. Some have different CMOs that actually do that. So encouraging those CMOs that administer different types of rights across the publishing rights element and the master rights element, the sound recording rights element, making them work in like create a symbiotic relationship would also enable us, because you'll find that the user license that is being pursued by a Samro or Capasso from a South African standpoint is also being pursued by RISA, which is the recording industry of South Africa, which does audiovisual. So the lack of a cohesive nature between these different CMOs also sort of hinders our the strength that we would normally have in pursuing user licenses. But the one that I also wanted to touch on that we hardly ever touch on is the one where we deal with broadcasters, digital platforms, and all of that, where there are usage logs and cue sheets. That administration has proven to be very, very tedious. It's difficult chasing after these cue sheets and all of these things, especially from from film production houses and things like that. These are some of the experiences that we've had. But then again, it also goes to what I was saying when I said education becomes quite important to both user and lawmaker, because ultimately the lawmakers need to enforce these laws to actually, or these licenses to be paid. And then lastly, for the sake of accountability and the sake of pushing everyone to do what they are supposed to do, it's important to also sort of formalize our industry by creating music composer alliances, or like how Samuel had put it, I think he used a different word. Just like the publishers are also organized, so that another symbiotic relationship happens where the rights of those composers, the rights of those publishers are actually upheld. And they also remember, without any music user licenses being paid, CMOs cannot actually collect money and pay it to its members, who are both publishers and composers. So we also need structured music creator alliances, music publisher alliances within each territory within Africa, but also create relationships with these creator alliances across Africa, so that they also sort of work with each other to make sure that all CMOs that ultimately play their music are accountable to the creators or to the members of those societies. So yeah, I thought I was triggered
Thank you so much.
to get to that. Sorry
Thank you.
about
That
the
was
silence.
very,
Thank you.
very, no
Yeah,
worries. Thank you. And yeah, I do agree with you on the part of the broadcasters as well. I mean, that's also an issue here. Mr. Samuel, did you want to say something?
Yes, I wanted to build on what Mr. Mayo said, and it's a very important
Okay.
discussion about DJs, and I think it's very, very key. And he said it well. When DJ organize function in which they exploit copyright, they need to get a license as organizer, not as DJ. It's very, very important. This, and it's something very key. And to put that in perspective, it's as if you are having a wedding and you invite one to play music into your wedding. Basically, that person bringing his material to play music is not the one organizing the wedding. Is just a service provider, I would say, basically. The same case when in a hotel you have a live band music. They are paid each Saturday to come and entertain people. In this very case, the hotel is accountable, is liable to get the license. And how do we differentiate that is who actually exploits copyright. When a DJ is paid in a venue, in a place, in a corporate event, he's not liable because he's not the one exploiting copyright. The person or the entity which hired him or her is liable in this. It's the same as I explained, where you have you are having a party, and then you have somebody who's on the machine, on the radio, whatever. That person is not liable. If you are the organizer, you are the one liable. And that's the same when it comes to DJ. So it's very, very important. And sometimes it brings a lot of discussion. DJ, when they organize an event, they are liable as organizer. But DJ, when they are hired or when they are paid, they are not liable because they are not exploiting copyright. This is very, very key. And I'm actually talking about the practice across Africa. So I think it was very, very important, as Mr. Mayo said, DJ, when they organize an event, when it's their organizer, they need to have the proper license. But when they are hired, the organizer or the venue is the one liable.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Mr. Samuel, for drawing that distinction. So while Miss Lydia is still unable to join us, I see that Mr. Mark Akpan, who used to work with the Nigerian Copyright Commission, is here with us. So, Mr. Mike, I don't know if you'll be kind enough to share your own perspective on the challenges that you think um, CMOs are having in Nigeria and also regulating that. You know that the famous caution against MCN case has been talked about. But in view of the new regulation that we have in Nigeria, what would you say, in your opinion, as a copyright practitioner, what would you say are like the most pressing challenges that CMOs have had so far?
Thank you so much, Rita. I'm very glad to be here to participate in this important dialogue. And I must acknowledge the presence of the distinguished experts, particularly Sam Sangwa, whom I met when he came to Lagos in 2023 when we organized a program for CMOs. Tando, I also salute you. I'm seeing you for the first time, but I thank you for excellent presentation. And my God there, the CEO of MCSN, Mayo Ayilaran, has huge experience on the field, and he just laid it bare. So I'm glad to contribute to the issues of challenges, but I'd like to comment on one or two things that was raised earlier. The issue of a possible continental-wide CMO or a fusion of some sort. I think Tando addressed that issue very well. But beyond that, I think what the CMOs in Africa needs to do is to engage more and see how to build a regional network of CMOs to enhance the bilaterals or even come to some multilateral agreement on how the cross-border licensing will be and strengthen how they can operate across the various regions. Yes, we acknowledge the subtle differences, especially when you look at the OAPI countries, where there is more fusion than when you are looking at the ARIPO and other countries. But we can come to some middle points where we have a greater synergy in terms of networking between the associations. And secondly, I think the coming into play of the African Continental Free Trade Agreement may also have some impact on the administration of copyright, in the sense that we can also borrow from what we have in the EU countries, where you can have directives issued regarding cross-border licensing. So these are the ways to look out for in the future. Then let me also chime in terms of the challenges that is happening in the licensing environment. Indeed, it is a huge challenge for the CMOs. Licensing has not been very easy for the CMOs, largely because of what I will call user apathy. It is debatable whether users understand the basis of the licensing. It's debatable from my own perspective, because the apathy might be owing to more of issues of the operating environment. Take, for instance, let's look at the hotels in Nigeria. Many times, when I was in the NCC, we tried to broker some kind of collective agreement between hotels and the CMOs. And what we often heard was that they are subjected to many bills coming from governments, And that, just to add to the issue of paying for rights, is just another layer of bill. So the complaint about the duplicity of taxation and so on and so forth is not so much about lack of understanding, but maybe the way the operating environment works also. Secondly, I think that maybe from the side of government, there is need for some push too, to ensure that businesses have some clean bill when it comes to respecting rights of authors. I mean, in Nigeria today, if a company wishes to bid for, let's say, a government contract, there are a few questions and documentation you may need. For instance, you need to show your tax clearance. You may need to show your pension clearance for your staff and so on and so forth. If government takes a look at, for instance, an agency like the tourism board that accredits hotel, begin to insist that as part of accreditation process, they have to show their copyright compliance, then it will begin to ease licensing challenge, because we need that kind of push. And thirdly, in recent times, I use one case that is pending, which I'm involved, that involves the two approved collective management organizations with hotels in Abuja. One of the issues they are raising deals with, communicating broadcasts in their spaces. And what the issue they are raising here is that they have paid for a subscription of the cable provider. And if they are paid for this subscription, why should they also be licensed by a CMO? And this is generating a lot of fuss. We are trying to, the CMOs have made efforts to explain why an access to a direct-to-home satellite service is not the same as copyright license for public performances. But these hotels are impervious. So it's not for want of understanding of the copyright precepts, but probably for just self-defensive approach that we find in almost practically every sphere of business life or public life in Nigeria. For me, where this will all empty to is the outcome of various court cases. And in a number of court cases, we have found courts who have ruled in favor of CMOs. What we may need to do is to spend more time educating lawyers who serve as lawyers to these outlets, and also educating our judges. Because when a judge does not understand these basics, then the judgment goes against CMOs or other licensing bodies. Then CMO becomes stuck. The business of CMO becomes stuck. So that is where we must deploy more energy. The CMOs must also learn to engage more in awareness creation. Yes, I know that AVRS used to have users forum where they explain a lot of things. So I think we need to have more users forum with sectoral users. Talk to the broadcasters independently, talk to the hoteliers independently, talk to banks, talk to big shops. Call them to a room and explain why you need this. And finally, I think tariff plays a lot of role in easing licenses. Why I say this is because sometimes users complain about humongous tariff of CMOs. Yes, the NCC has not gotten around to regulating the tariff of CMOs, but the last regulation that was issued this 2025 seemed to ask the CMO to justify their tariff and submit it to the NCC. It's not an approval process, but I guess the justification will show that your tariffs are both reflective of the nature of use as well as realistic within the context of the economic environment. This may also have CMOs cooperating in terms of putting out the realistic tariff that users can easily relate to. Yes, I'm aware that these are privately owned property and the CMOs are at liberty to a fixed tariff. Yes, that is true, but tariff must also be realistic and reflect usage. More importantly, users should also be educated that, like Mr. Hilaran said, they can negotiate this tariff. But if they do not have the wherewithal to drive the tariff down, there is a provision in the Copyright Act that they can go for mediation or arbitration under the NCC that can set a dispute resolution panel to look at the tariffs. I think once we are able to solve these issues, then licensing becomes a bit more easier. Those are my interventions in terms of licensing. The new regulation has positive elements to it. The new regulations have positive elements to it. One of the areas we must look at, both from the new law and the new regulation, is that the global licensing, the extended licensing provision will enable CMOs to conduct licensing seamlessly. Because one of the challenges CMOs face is that when you go to license either a broadcast station, they will say, I need to see who you are representing. But now I think the law in Nigeria allows a CMO to represent the global repertoire. So this should also be a plus. Thank you.
Seriously, if you want to transform your IP knowledge from to aha, come and hang out with us on the IP Series podcast. We're here to inspire, to educate, and entertain you on your journey to understanding how intangible asset works. So subscribe today and let's make IP the most interesting conversation. Else, we're gonna have a problem, guys. Please subscribe, okay? Hit that subscribe button and join the party.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Mr. Mike Afan, for that timely intervention. So back to, I see a comment from Olalekan Akiwumi. He says, DJs are hired based on their expertise. If the DJs do not have required license, the organizers cannot be held responsible for hiring. Then Moteniola Akinbade says, the MCSN, however, has not drawn that distinction for Nigeria DJs like Mr. Samuel has presented. Therefore, it will be appreciated if the MCSN representative enlighten us on whether what implies in Nigeria is when the DJ is an organizer or has been paid to play at an event, in which of the situation would the DJ be required to get a license? So that's the question we have so far. But before we get into that, I don't know if Mr. Samuel or Mr. Tando can just touch a bit more on how disputes between rights holders and CMOs are dealt with. I know Mr. Mike Akman had mentioned that under the Nigerian law, we have a provision for mediation or arbitration of copyrighted disputes. But are there like specific courts or tribunals that you may have encountered trying to resolve CMO and rights holders dispute?
Maybe just to start off, because I know that maybe Sam is he's gonna take it home. From a South African perspective, we do have a copyright tribunal, but again, it goes back to what Mike spoke to. And such a lovely, awesome pleasure to meet all of you. And I really do hope to interact further because it's not just us giving our 2 cents, but we're also learning from each other. So we do have a copyright tribunal. And for the life of me, for as long as I've been involved in the industry at this level, I do not recall seeing one case being taken to the copyright tribunal, even though we do have it. It is empowered by our Copyright Act of South Africa, which is currently being re-looked at currently through an amendment bill. That is another story altogether. Now, in our Copyright Tribunal, I feel like the reason why we haven't taken cases there is because of this lack of knowledge from all participants within the copyright environment, which is ultimately the music creator environment, that is where copyright is central. And creators themselves, I'm still struggling to convince them that you need to be a member of a South African CMO if you are a South African creative, and then notify your works, because there's this belief that everything is automatic. If my music is being used in certain spaces, a Samro, a Capasso should be paying me, but they haven't notified. Then taking it back to the enforcement of the user licenses and ultimately speaking to some form of mediation and arbitration. We've literally struggled. I think it's only now that we are gaining some ground in terms of enforcing laws and CMOs. And I will say there's a CMO called SAMPRA that is more on the neighboring side of things in South Africa. And SAMPRA has been able to actually take and successfully win cases, take certain restaurants to court, litigation route, where they would sort of try and enforce these laws and get these people to start paying user licenses. They're currently pursuing fruit and veg right now, corporations in South Africa who are using music but are not complying. So this is something that we are trying to see other stakeholders or other CMOs within the publishing side also doing it. But again, lack of resources, lack of budgets, because litigation is very expensive. But I still feel that with the copyright tribunal that we have in our country, we are missing many opportunities of utilizing it because it's there for a reason. And it sort of empowers all stakeholders, including creators, users, and CMOs themselves. So yes, we do have issues there. We still have lots to learn, but litigation is already taking place. But again, it's a very expensive process. So that's where we are, and I think that's my take in it from where we are.
Yes,
Thank you
and
so
I
much,
really want
Mr.
to take
Samuel.
it from there. Tando said very expensive. So when it comes to enforcement, it's costly because if we are looking at enforcement from that perspective of judiciary, like to take a lawyer to go to court, it's very expensive, but necessary. And it depends upon situation. And I want to bring this image where effective copyright system requires three things. You need the law. Like in Nigeria now, you have a Copyright Act. That's first thing. Second thing is you need the copyright society, an efficient one, accountable, transparent. And the third element is enforcement. Enforcement of the CMO, enforcement of the government. So it's a triangle. But now I want to add a fourth point. It's no more a triangle. I want to make a square. I'm adding business, and I'm going to explain why I'm adding business. But I'm giving now stories. This is from African perspective. In Malawi, some years back, what they did to enhance compliance and enforcement is, at the end of the year, they will invite users compliant, and they will give them kind of a certificate, and that will be on TV. I asked the very people there, hotel owners and the like, are you interested in copyright? That's why you are paying. So one of the gentlemen told me, no, I'm not interested in copyright per se. I'm interested in being on TV because TV saves me marketing. It's helped me reach out to so many people at the same time, and the CMO is paying for that free marketing. This is what we call branding. So this is business. The user understands the value of being marketed through compliance. The other point is in Zimbabwe, and I really want to tell this story because some of you probably are not conversant with this. In Zimbabwe, it's the contrary. The CMO, when it came to distribution, just wrote in a newspaper
dear creators, we are not able to pay you because the following hotels, restaurants did not pay. So this is shaming. So what does it mean? When you tarnish the reputation of a business, it's not good for them. So what has happened in Zimbabwe is 3 months later, the CMO just leaked the information like, we are going to put you again into the newspaper. People came running to say, don't shame us. We are going to pay. Because there is this business component. So how do we link copyright compliance to business, branding, and reputation? Let me go back to the example in Malawi because it's also a personal thing. So the gentleman who replied to me like he wants to be on TV added, when I go back at home, my wife hugs me with much more tenderness because she saw me on TV. So there is something which stretches from personal to corporate image. All of us need to be associated with beautiful stories. This is storytelling. This is branding. To go back now to the very example of Mr. Akpa, and now I'm building on example in Cape Verde, where the government says, we as government, we will only organize our functions such as workshops, seminars, retreats, only in venue which are copyright friendly. And in a very short span of time, hotels, venue, conference places went to pay for copyright because we are bringing that business aspect. You want to get business to you, you want to be listed in the procurement of the government, then comply and the money will come. Let me now imagine in Abuja, where the government is. I visited Abuja and Lagos, but let me take Abuja. Very beautiful city, so many hotels. Let's just imagine the government say, we will only organize our functions in hotels, restaurants, only which are copyright friendly. Believe me, this will change because you include copyright compliance into procurement and into business. And for me, that's why now I'm taking it as a square, no more a triangle. We need, on top of enforcement, to bring business. We need to really avoid the perception where copyright compliance is only looked from the angle of how should I put it? Criminal, I'm taking you to the courts, it's the police. It brings a very negative perspective on this. People will look at us, and that's the public in general, will look at all these copyrights as something very negative, though we are actually talking about beauty. We are talking about art. We are talking about stories. We are talking about memories. We are talking about business. So for me, I'm moving away from the triangle, law, corporate society, and enforcement, but I'm also adding business.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Mr. Summer, for that contribution. I do agree that once we start to see copyrighted work, all the role that CMOs are doing in terms of the business angle, I think more users of copyrighted work would comply. I see that Mrs. Lydia finally joined us. Mrs. Lydia, can we see? I don't know if you can turn on your video, but in the interim, I'll just read the comments and questions that we have on YouTube. Lotana Atto says, can practical solutions be looked into that considers the type of users and how they use music? Because the issues regarding hotels or CMOs are commercial ones that I think deserve commercial solutions. Then Toby J says, I signed up with MCSN about a while ago, but I am yet to receive an IPI. Who do I reach out to rectify that? And Lotana again says the same issue I think will also arise regarding other types of users, e.g. restaurants, marts. Yeah, I think those are the questions, but others are just commenting the session so far. So, Mr. Mayowa,
Yes.
over to you. Yeah, so you have, I had read the question from one of the participants, and I don't know if you'd like to address that, and then afterwards, Mrs. Lydia can say
Okay.
a word or two.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you very much. Before I go into that, I would like to say one or two things about the issue of adjudication, as mentioned earlier. The copyright system, that is the people who are in the copyright chain, particularly the lawyers, the judges, they need a lot of education and awareness about the copyright market. Because we had an experience regarding the dispute resolution, which Michael Appan mentioned. We had a case referred by the courts to a dispute resolution panel. But at the end of the day, it was so funny that the panel did not even look at the parameters to arrive at an award. They just gave an award without basis. When facts, figures, and details of usage were presented, so you can imagine the level of the education that is needed. It's not only the judges we are looking at, because as time goes on, the conflict resolution panel of the Nigerian Copyright Commission may become the court of first instance. And if these things are not well defined and well determined to the satisfaction of parties at that level, then we may be in for a very long ride in achieving a successful licensing scheme. Now, to the issue of the DJs, it's very simple. NCSN follows the money. The question is who earns from the copyright chain. If a DJ earns from the copyright chain, then it is moral, it is equitable that the creators to earn from that. So a DJ, if we say it is only when a DJ organizes an event that it is only then they can be liable. How do you determine when a DJ organizes an event as different from when they were invited, or when a DJ is performing in a licensing environment? Most of the DJs that we have in Nigeria are itinerant DJs. Many of them do not have a stable location. They go from one point to the other and do their business, and they earn along the line. It's just like a music product distributor, who distributes or disseminates music, as different from the people who receives the music. Is a DJ who disseminates the music to the audience. If the audience is private, the audience has no issue with copyright matters. It is only when that audience is a public place, then the audience will be liable. The same way, the DJ that disseminates the source of the music will be held liable. So going into the complexities of whether it is the DJ that benefits or exploits, number one, the DJ is the one exploiting and transmitting to others. What the other use or deploys the music for is a different thing entirely. So it is very clear, we have explained this to the DJ Association and they quite agreed. And that is why most of them are compliant. The little ones that are crying wolf, they are not members of the JAN. And even majority of them that are not members of the JAN and who do not want to join the JAN, they have approached MCSN that they want their own license separately, even at higher cost. For example, if we say, okay, the JAN member should pay us 20,000 naira, these other guys are ready to pay 100,000. So all these are the complexities that we have within the community, but we are on top of the game, and God is helping us to manage it effectively. When we look at the whole gamut of all the complexities, the problems we are confronting, I believe they are all works in progress. At the end of the day, with this type of program, with engagement, with meetings, people will get very, very well informed about their copyright liabilities. That is what I need to see. Then concerning the Pan-African collaboration, this is a very good topic that is very dear to us. And I believe, yes, presently, the only organization that is working and looking towards Pan-Africanism in Africa is majorly Capasso in South Africa. But many others are Eurocentric. That is, everybody is looking up to the Europe and American bodies like CSIS and something, just because of technology. And if Africa society are able to surmount this challenge of technologies, the issue of collaboration will be well resolved. But as time goes on, we know things will be working out well for the CMOs vis-a-vis for the right owners. And kudos to NCC for the new regulation they have issued. It is in tandem with the Copyright Act. And I believe it will work well for every stakeholder, both CMOs, the writers, the users, and everybody. Because within the regulations, you have your right of say and even the right of action. Thank you so much. Yes.
Thank you so much, Mr. Mayowa, for that. Miss Lydia, first of all, apologies for all the stress for today. And I'm very, very honored that you finally were able to join us. So, just one question for you before we wrap up. From you're the director of the FTC Lagos branch. My question to you would be, what are the models that NCC may be considering for Nigeria that is also Pan-African, and are there trends that that the NCC is also adopting? And then if you have any comments regarding the topic from a global and local perspective too, we'll also appreciate. Let's see here again. Oh my God.
I put out a question out there. I am happy with the elucidation you made to how government can intervene, and particularly the examples in Malawi and Zimbabwe. But I was wondering, with the issue of when a CMO does some form of naming and shaming, will it not be exposed to legal liability for something like business defamation or unfair trade practice? Are there no laws that, because these entities like broadcasting stations or hotels are sometimes very strong businesses that can easily flag up litigation. Just like I said in the earlier in my earlier submission, currently, about 426 hotels under a hotel union in Abuja are suing the two collective management organizations and NCC and police. And the reason they are suing, without prejudicing the ongoing action, is funny. They are claiming violation of their fundamental rights. They are not even suing on the basis of their rights not to, or their entitled rights not to honor copyright obligation. They are saying that the collective management organizations who are requesting for their licensing and who are trying to implement the criminal provisions of the law are violating their rights. So if you look at it from that perspective, wouldn't you be exposing CMOs to liability if they have to do naming and shaming?
Yes, and it's a good question. Just to elaborate on the story in Zimbabwe, because that's where it has happened for 2 consecutive years. So they even name and shamed the public broadcaster, like the national TV and radio. And that was still under Mugabe. And somebody in the government said, we are going to shut down this CMO for naming and shaming us. But the public, the general public, went on Twitter and say, shame on you. The people you are not paying are our fathers, our mothers, our sons, our daughter. What we need to understand here is copyright is an economic right, but it's a human right. It's the right to make a living, the right to live. So if you put it in that context, if you're not paying me, let me say I'm working for a company or a business and you don't pay me, if I actually say you're not paying me, I'm not defaming you. I'm actually saying the truth. Because this is my fundamental right, it's a constitutional right to be remunerated. Defamation comes when what I'm saying about you is wrong or partially wrong. But reporting the truth about a fundamental right, which is a human right, can't be, you know? But for me, it has actually worked very well in those countries because businesses and people are attached to their reputation, to their brand. You know, they are attached to their brand in this case, and that's why in Zimbabwe it has worked. Believe me, and in Cape Verde, where with the Prime Minister and the Minister of Culture and the Minister of Tourism, they decided that the government will only organize functions in venues which are licensed. There was an increase on compliance of 60% within a period of 6-7 months. Why? Because more and more we're having citizens and corporates who are responsible and conscious. Today we choose to go in places, we choose businesses based on some kind of perception. I will not go and sit or open a bank account where I don't see. And that's why you have all this CSR thing, you know? So it's what we are playing there in this regard. And believe me, let me take it to Cote d'Ivoire. Last year, they were organizing the African Cup of Nations. So we told them, guys, this is sports event, huge event. But in the past, this football event was not compliant. So you are bringing a lot of money to hotels, to restaurants, to stadium, but artists are not getting money. So we tell them, look, do you want to look good as a football tournament or to look bad? So they choose to look good, and they paid something close to 500,000 US dollar. You see, because we told them, you such a big tournament with sponsors, with young people coming to you, you can't afford to have bad marketing to say this event is not copyright friendly. They are more afraid of their brand reputation than actual defamation. So that's where the business part comes in. No business can actually survive when its brand is tarnished. And this is where we may need to find how to come in a way or another.
Yeah. Thank you so much, Sam. You've really addressed that issue. And I do hope at some point that we in Nigeria can, the government in Nigeria can look to such model where they decide that they can only do business with hotels that are compliant in their copyright obligations. And I think that is where the campaign of the CMOs should also be focused on, bringing pressure on the right side of government. Some years back, during the round of review of the broadcasting code, I was still then in the NCC. Part of the submission we made to the Nigerian Broadcasting Commission was to make copyright issues an A category sanction for broadcasters, and that if they do not possess copyright compliance certificate, their broadcasting license should not be renewed. But that piece of suggestion was not taken. As it stands today, non-payment of or copyright infringement by broadcasters is still part of Category C sanctions, which is more malleable and may not compel the broadcasting organizations to take licensing of broadcasting like rights or for music CMOs more seriously. So it's an area we also need to look at aside the issue of the hotels. And I think it's well taken. I don't know if...
I want to add on what you are saying on the responsibility of the government, talking about what they can do. And if I take the very example of Nigeria, where the Copyright Act was enacted 2022, if I'm good, and I was with Mr. Mayo, he gave me a good piece of a book, you know? So, on one hand, the government has enacted the Copyright Act. So if the same government take business to a hotel which is not copyright friendly, which is not copyright compliant, there is a contradiction. That's also something we need to push. So you on one hand enables a legislation, but on the other hand, you including your procurement of services, users who are not compliant, you know? So we need also to push for some kind of coherence. You want to enforce copyright, you have a copyright legislation, then you should refrain to engage business with users who are infringing the very piece of legislation you have enacted. You see the type of rationale we are trying to push. Because government can make a huge change in this, being the enabler. So it's not only enabling the legislation, but it's also enabling the business and making copyright as a mainstreamed element for the government to engage with this. It's the same with, you know, environment or gender or, you know, we need to become what I call copyright sensitive, starting with the government and then again with the businesses and so forth and so forth. So that's also where we think we need to go when engaging with the government, because the government is, in most of our African countries, the biggest provider of businesses. And hospitality is the second most important revenue stream for creators. If the government goes that way, that can change totally the landscape.
Thank you, Sam. It's the same here in Nigeria. The government is the biggest patron of a lot of businesses, including hotels. There is no week that passes that you don't have like 5 to 10 very big conferences in Abuja. And all these are powered by government. And if government can look in that direction, I think it will go a long way. The good thing again for Nigeria is that I'm seeing the body language of the present administration being more sensitive to intellectual property rights protection and enhancement. As a matter of fact, the Minister of Culture empaneled a committee to draft a national cultural policy for Nigeria. And I'm serving in that committee and the expert group that is even drafting the policy. And I can tell you that intellectual property issues and issues surrounding creative industry is becoming very topical. Just about 2 weeks ago, I was in one of the states in the southeast of Nigeria where they held the Southeast Creative Economy Summit. And I mean, one of the biggest issues that they talked about was how creators can leverage their rights and earn income from their creativity. So this emerging interest of government gives hope that if there is some push in the right direction, we will be able to implement policies such as you have just mentioned, similar to what is in Malawi. I see Mr. Hilaran, the CEO of MCSN, and looked like he wanted to say something. Sir,
yes.
You can say something.
Yes, I think this is a very interesting issue that Sam has raised. And
okay, Rita also is back. Rita, sorry, sir. Rita, I was holding forth for you. So welcome back. We are
Thank
still
you so much,
discussing
Mr.
what
Mike. I think you got.
we were
I can see
discussing
that it's also a very interesting conversation.
what government can do to help the CMOs. That's what we were discussing. So, Mr. Hilaran, please go ahead before.
Yes, you have laid a very good foundation on how the Nigerian government can can come to push this line of thoughts as raised by Samuel. And I think with the body language of the NCC, I think they have the NCC has the wherewithal to kind of galvanize all the agencies within the IP circle to engage with relevant government agencies to see how they can push this agenda of using only places or spaces that are copyright friendly. I think with that kind of collaboration, the government at the center too will be able to come up with a kind of legislation or an order or anything that can help in that regard. Like you rightly mentioned earlier, Nigerians are very eager to challenge the authority on any issue. They can come by way of discrimination and challenge you on that you are discriminating against them as Nigerian and so on and so forth. So if all the agencies will have it as a goal that come, at least starting from all IP agencies, if we are doing anything, the first question we'll ask the venue owner or anybody we are engaging, what is your copyright status? What is your IP compliant status? Then from there, the ripple will continue to go on until it catches with the federal government. So it's a good one from Samuel, and I believe if we all combine and collaborate to push it, it is achievable. Thank you.
Rita is gone again.
Thank you, sir.
I'm still
Rita.
here. I'm still here. I'm still here.
Wrap up.
You need to pay us.
Thank you
Keep the
so
house for
much.
you.
Thank you so much, Mr. Mike Alfa. Thank you, Mr. Samuel. Thank you, Mr. Tando. Thank you, Mr. Maiwa. I see Mrs. Lydia is back again. I don't know if her network will let her say something. Mrs. Lydia.
Good afternoon, everyone.
Good afternoon.
Okay, great.
I'm
Good
so
afternoon.
sorry. For more than 1 hour, I've been trying to, struggling to get into this.
Linda is back.
Yes, I'm back. Good afternoon, everyone. Like I said, I've been trying to get into this chat. And finally, I got in. By the time they mentioned Linda again, I was yanked off the network again. But I'm glad to be here. And I really thank Miss Rita for organizing this. And one thing I know for certain is that the future for CMOs is getting brighter and brighter. We have had to struggle with a lot of limited awareness. That's why it was a bit difficult for them to take off. But I know that now people are becoming more aware. People are becoming more interested in copyright issues, and copyright knowledge is going viral. People are becoming more aware, so it's going to become much easier for them. And I just heard what Mr. Samuel said, the last point he was making about government collaborating to make sure that they use only hotels or agencies or organizations that are copyright friendly for their conferences and all that. And I think it's a very good idea. And we, Nigerian Copyright Commission, are ready to work with that. We are ready to run with that. We are ready to collaborate with other government agencies to make sure that they understand. First of all, they need to understand, because I said we have problem of limited awareness. A lot of people cannot even understand what you mean by copyright. We have had an instance where a judgment was given and it was said that a hotel that has paid for a DSTV does not need to pay collecting management organizations anymore. So we need to do a lot of awareness, then go out there, collaborate with other government agencies, and make a stand. And indeed say, if you are not copyright friendly, if you are not paying what you are supposed to pay, we will not use your hotel. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Mrs. Lydia, for that contribution. I don't see any other. Okay, yeah, someone on YouTube was saying Mr. Mayowa didn't answer his question on how to get his IPI. So I don't know if
okay.
Mr. Mayowa addressed.
We have explained over if the person had actually contacted us in the office, I think he should have gotten the right answer. We have explained to him that the IPI is centrally administered and processed at CISAC, at the behest of CISAC in Switzerland. And we are sorting out some issues with CISAC. And as soon as those issues are sorted out, they will be able to get their IPI without delay. And we have recently had a meeting with Samuel, and Samuel gave us assurance that he's going to work on that as soon as he gets back to France. So I believe Samuel, is well aware of that challenge that we are having. So the caller should be rest assured that very soon the issue of IPI will be resolved positively. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Mr. Maiwa. So, Motenilola Akinbade said that I agree with Mr. Samuel, and I believe that it is time for Nigeria consider incentives that can be beneficial to people's business, and will encourage them to get their required license rather than always considering punishable measures, which oftentimes business owners end up paying fines and then continue the cycle of still not paying their licensing fees. Incentives and reward might be a better approach than fines and punishment. So thank you to all my speakers. I know that everyone has a very, very busy day. Mr. Tando, you just came back from the lecture. Mr. Samuel, Mr. Mario, who I had to drag out of the bed early this morning. Mrs. Lydia, who has been trying for the past 1 hour to join us. Mr. Michael also stepped in to assist us. Thank you so much. So I don't see any other comments or questions, but I don't know if any of my speakers has a final comment before we close this webinar for today.
Maybe Rita, just on that, a parting shot from me is to, one, thank you for inviting me in this platform, and to the fellow speakers as well. Such an honor to meet all of you, to learn from all of you. I've been listening, taking notes, and realizing, and I think just from what Lydia was saying, that it seems that the African CMOs landscape is changing and growing for the better, encouraging more collaboration between ourselves. And I think, based on a chat that I think, Rita, you had with me earlier on, where you said we might also see if there are any lessons we can draw from your international CMOs, such the bigger ones, such as your ASCAP, your PRS, SASEM, Gamma. What could we learn? There's much to be learned, but obviously they were always at an advantage because there are no historic colonial oppression or oppressive history in their books for some of them, unlike us, who are still trying to shake off and dust off those elements from us. So from an economic standpoint, we're still developing in many instances. However, one of the things that I noticed after working with them, seeing that I serve on the CM board, and it's composed of members who represent some of these CMOs, that their countries, they have strong creator unions and advocacy bodies that are quite critical for shaping policy within their countries and ultimately influencing policy across the globe. If we could look at how they are using that system. I did state earlier on that for SOCAN and ASCAP, they've got MCNA, which is Music Creators North America. You've got ECSA, which is in Europe. You've got CONCA, which is in South Korea. And these are serious creator bodies that actually sit in the table and influence policy, not just shaping their particular countries, but ultimately the continent that they represent. So it means that we should also sort of find a center after this, from both a CMO perspective and a creator perspective as well, to advocate for policy across cross-border policies, if you will. And obviously, we need to make sure that those collaborations have lobbying power, so that we can start lobbying and supporting each other. Currently, South Africa is embroiled in a case where we are dealing with the Copyright Amendment Bill, where the fair use exception has been introduced after we've been using fair dealing all these years. And fair use being a US model doesn't favor us in so many instances. And we've been trying to deal with that. It's currently at the Constitutional Court because it was passed by the National Council of Provinces and the National Assembly, and then taken on to the president to sign. And the president said, no, there's some unconstitutionality that I see here. So it needs to go for public engagements. It did. Unfortunately, it was passed again by both houses. And the president said, well, I can't sign this, so I'm taking it to the Constitutional Court, which is where it is. And I note that while we are busy fighting for the fair use clause, the private copy levy issue, and also other issues that include technology, AI has not necessarily featured in our discussion today. And yet AI is a real growing phenomenon that could, if we do not have strong policies that can protect our IP and our copyright from any infringing activities that AI can present, then we'll find that we'll be in trouble. So these are some of the things we need to look into. So that's my parting shot. But
Mr. Thanos,
yes.
someone just asked a question on YouTube. John Mark says, I would like to know CISAC and WIPO stand on the issue of AI on how to deal with copyrighted work. So I think the person had posted it, but I was going to read it after your comments, and then you
Right.
highlighted it. So that's the question. If you want to take
Thank
it.
you. Thank you. Look, it's important. Like as stated, Samuel and I were in Sofia, Bulgaria just a few weeks ago, probably 2 weeks ago, for a CSAC General Assembly. And it was quite interesting. And I reflected on this on my LinkedIn page that there's an organization called IRCAM Amplify, which is based in France. And they've created an AI detection tool that is said or alleged to be 99% accurate. So while there are policy questions on how to protect AI from a WIPO position, from a CSEC position, I know that CSEC, maybe Samuel will speak to CSEC as well from within, but I do know that they do have a strong position that is creator centric, that seeks to enable creators or owners of copyright to gain fair remuneration each time their works are used, and seeing how that could be articulated in the physical sense. I'm not sure right now where we are with that, but there are tools, and I see that there are some CMOs, including I think Buma Stemma, which is in I think it's the Netherlands, if I'm not lying. Yes, right. So they've even created a Buma AI system that also detects that notified works. Each notified work, if there is any AI created content in a song, and it's able to sort of separate the human content and be able to pay according to that human content. So if a human wrote or composed 70% of the song, it can actually tell and detect. But this is from what they are saying, it's not tested. So I'm saying from Africa, can we not then look at our own resources, look at what we can actually do, come up with our own AI detection systems, while we are also trying to actively lobby for policy that will protect copyright owners across the African continent, by collaborating, obviously, CMO to CMO and the creator associations that I've been mentioning. I feel like it would give us some strong lobbying power, where we could make a case to the African Union, where we could make a case to any other body that we need to make a case to. But it starts with us, because I, for one, wouldn't want an organization from abroad to tell us that we've got a system that we created and now they're selling it to us when we also have the same will of creating our own tools that can enable us to run effectively our own industry and make sure that everyone benefits from it. So I feel collaboration will take us very far. Educate ourselves, research, but also be able to collaborate, listen to understand each other, and support each other as best as we can. Thank you. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Mr. Tando. Mr. Samuel, since Mr. Tando mentioned your name, can you just give us final words and then probably highlight the AI aspect of the questions that was asked?
Yes,
Mr. Samuel.
Tando said it right. Today, more than ever, collective management, corporate societies are very important because of the AI. To break it down, and this is coming from a CISAC study, AI is cannibalizing creativity. What does it mean? Today, with a prompt, anyone in the world now can create a piece of music. It means in 1 minute, not even 1 minute, 30 seconds, I can ask the machine, the AI, to create Afrobeat with a flavor of Yemi Alade, for instance. So basically, what does it mean? The author, the composer, the producer, the studio, the performers, all of them just disappear. And those are jobs we are talking about. In a continent such as Africa, very fragile, where our young people need to make a living and believe creativity is where they can make it, we really need to make sure AI is looked in a way where it contributes to remunerate authors. That's why we at CISAC, we consider that remuneration is key. Remuneration is key by those AI machines. For which reason? Because when I say create for me Afrobeat with a flavor of Yemi Alade, the machine is going to look for pieces, tiny pieces of Yemi Alade songs, recombine it, and create what one may think. So for us, this is copyright infringement. That's first case. Second case is create me music look like Afrobeat. The machine, one can feed the machine with a number of existing Afrobeat work. So for that, we said either you are taking tiny pieces of existing work or feeding the machine with existing work, there is responsibility and there is remuneration. So for us, this is very, very key because we are in a continent where the creativity is huge, but we are not getting the economic value of it. And now there are risks of jobs being undermined and disappear. So more than ever on the continent, CMOs have a very strong role to play. And I will end up by saying, at the end of the day, creators are only storytellers. Music, movies, painting are stories. It's our stories. It's stories of who we are as African, as Nigerian, as South African, as Rwandan, as Congolese. We need creators to be empowered. And to being empowered is to be remunerated so that they can still continue to tell those stories. If the machine tells the stories, the machine comes with cultural biases. So it's very important we uphold collective management and copyright because it's our capacity to tell our stories on the global scale.
Thank you so much, Mr. Samuel, for highlighting. I do agree with you. AI is cannibalizing copyrighted activity. And John also has a follow-up. He says, I have a feeling that if we allowed exceptionalism to AI on copyright works, the CMO will have a challenge to license AI musical works, and that is it. So, Mr. Maiwa, do you have a contribution? Oh, I think this. Oh, yeah. Okay. I think yeah, Mr. Maiwa, please, and then Miss Lydia.
Okay, really, I am on all fours. I'm on all fours with both Sando and Samuel on this issue of AI. But like for philosophy in MCSN, just follow the money. Samuel has said it. AI machine is deriving the products or the contents from somebody, like Tiwa Savage, or recently I was at a seminar, AI seminar. Then the first thing they played was a version of Jeremy, Victor Wife's Jeremy. At the end of the playing, they asked, who is the owner of that music? Everybody shouted, Victor Wife. Then the organizer said, no, that music was an AI generated music. And I simply said, whether it is AI generated music or not, all I need to do is to put the original music of a wife or side by side with this, and any reasonable person would know that this is a replication of Victor Wife's music. And therefore, I'll be able to make a claim for the copyright. So the remuneration aspect that was emphasized by Samuel is at the center of our own interest in MCSN. So let AI come. We will not do anything to stop AI because technology advances every day. But we will try to get as much as possible out of that technology for the benefit of our composers and authors. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Mr. Maiwa. And yes, Mr. Tando, I see your comments. For that, the AI issue, the American music producer Timbaland is also an advisor to music AI company Sono, has now officially signed an AI artist, and they're busy working on a music video for this artist. And this means not only music creator copyright was infringed upon, but the likeness of people as well, seen as the AI artist now has an existing image. I do agree. I saw that case, and the comment on X, someone stated that Timbaland was now tainting his legacy that he has built over the years as a music producer. So there are more issues that are going to be coming up. I think it's in the agenda for the year. We're trying to get the right speakers so that we have an engaging session. But Mrs. Lydia, do you have any comment to make before we wrap up?
Yes, I would say concerning AI, it's an emerging trend. It's here to stay. It's here with us. We must try and as quickly as possible to get policies in place that will help us manage works created by AI. But we know that the traditional requirements of who created the work is still there. So we know who created the work, and if AI uses somebody's work and there's an infringement, there should be somebody to hold over that. So, and also we could also adopt some industry best practices to handle this AI until we get to the proper laws, until we get proper laws in place that will help us. But like Mr. Mayo said, let's pursue the money. As collecting management societies, pursue the money. Where the money is, go there and collect your money. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Mrs. Lydia. Thank you once again, Mr. Tando, Mr. Samuel, Mr. Mario, Mrs. Lydia, to all the participants that joined us on Zoom and also on YouTube. Thank you guys so much. Your comments have been very encouraging. And to respond to Mr. David Afolabi, yes, we do have an AI session coming up. Once that is concluded, we'll share details for registration. Well, thank you to everyone for spending the last 2 hours with us today. I do hope you have a good day, a good afternoon, or a good evening. And that's it from my end, from my team and myself. Thank you. Thank you, everybody.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.
I appreciate it.
Bye, everyone.
Thank you so much. Bye, everyone.
Bye, everyone.
Bye.
All right. Bye.
Thank you.
Thank you for listening to IP Series podcast. If you enjoyed this episode, please subscribe, rate, and review us on your favorite podcast platform. Don't forget to share it with your friends, family, and colleagues. You can also follow us on Instagram at IPSERIES with Esmeraldo ESQ or Twitter at IPSERIES1 or send us an email to ipseriesinfo@gmail.com. Until next time, stay tuned and stay informed.